I came home from work early and saw my 10-year-old daughter scrubbing the floor with a rag, alone, as punishment for bad behavior. While her grandparents took their real granddaughter to the movies, I calmly did what I should have done long ago. Before we continue, please write in the comments where you're watching this video from. Enjoy the story. Maria came home late. Her shift at the hospital had been grueling, and exhaustion clung to her like an annoying fly to honey. She worked as a nurse on rotating shifts, and those endless nights filled with pain and fear drained her to the core. But she knew why she endured it. For Valeria. Valeria, her daughter from her first marriage. A quiet, unassuming girl who seemed afraid to take up too much space in the world. Maria always sensed a fragility in her, a vulnerability she desperately tried to protect. Valeria was 10, and her eyes often held a grown-up sadness that broke Maria's heart. She lived with Ignacio, her second husband, and his parents in their large, sturdy apartment. Ignacio was a good man, a caring husband, but he didn't see, or perhaps didn't want to see, what was happening right under his nose. In Ignacio's family there was also Alicia, his daughter from his first marriage. Alicia was the complete opposite of Valeria, bright, loud, and confident. Her grandparents adored her. Alicia was their true blood, their princess, and it showed in everything. Maria understood that Alicia wasn't to blame. She was just a child who received more attention and love. But this injustice, this blatant difference in how the girls were treated, poisoned Maria's life. She tried to ignore the small things, how Luisa, Ignacio's mother, always served Alicia the largest portion and Valeria the smallest. How Ignacio's father praised Alicia for every little thing while Valeria's achievements went unnoticed. How Luisa constantly scolded Valeria for the slightest misstep while Alicia got away with everything. For the sake of peace in the family, for Ignacio, Maria stayed silent. She convinced herself she was overreacting, that it was all in her head. But with each passing day, staying silent became harder. The apartment exuded an air of superficial well-being, expensive furniture, fine china, conversations about the latest news and future plans. But behind this glossy facade, a deep crack was growing wider every day. Maria felt like a stranger in this home. She was a guest, an outsider, expected to be grateful for being allowed to stay. And Valeria, her poor Valeria, felt it even more keenly. In the evenings, when everyone else was asleep, Maria would sit by Valeria's bedside and gently stroke her hair. She told her stories, whispered words of love and support, trying to make up for the lack of attention and warmth Valeria received from the rest of the family. One day, Valeria asked her, "Mama, why don't they love me?" The question hit Maria like a knife. She didn't know how to respond. How do you explain to a child that they're unloved for no reason? How do you explain that some people are incapable of unconditional love? She hugged Valeria tightly and said, "Sweetheart, that's not true. They love you in their own way." But she knew it was a lie, and Valeria probably knew it too. Maria felt that things couldn't go on like this. She saw Valeria fading day by day, her eyes losing their spark. She feared Valeria would close herself off completely, stop believing in herself and her worth. She had to do something. She had to protect her daughter. Alicia, Ignacio's daughter, was not only the favorite of her grandparents but also of Ignacio himself. He was proud of her school achievements, her victories in competitions, her artistic talents. Maria didn't feel jealous. She understood that Ignacio loved Alicia as his own, but it hurt her for Valeria's sake. Why didn't Ignacio see how smart, kind, and talented Valeria was? Why didn't he notice her drawings, her poems, her small victories? Maria tried talking to Ignacio about it. Carefully, so as not to hurt his feelings, she hinted that Valeria needed more attention and support, but Ignacio brushed it off. "You're overreacting, Maria," he'd say. "Valeria's just a shy girl. She needs time to adjust to our family." But time passed, and nothing changed. Valeria didn't adjust. She became more withdrawn and distant. Maria felt trapped. She loved Ignacio, but she couldn't tolerate the injustice toward Valeria any longer. She knew that sooner or later she'd have to make a choice, and it would be the hardest decision of her life. Alicia often came to Valeria's room to play. She brought her dolls, her books, her toys. Valeria was always happy to see Alicia. She admired her beauty, her confidence, her ability to get along with everyone. But Maria noticed that Alicia often took advantage of Valeria's kindness. She made her do her homework, clean up her toys, give up her things. Valeria never complained. She always said she didn't mind, that she liked doing things for Alicia. But Maria saw it wasn't true. She saw how upset Valeria was when Alicia tricked her, mocked her, or ignored her. Maria understood that Alicia might not realize she was hurting Valeria. She was simply used to getting away with everything, always being the center of attention. But that didn't justify her behavior. One day, Maria came home earlier than usual. Her shift at the hospital ended unexpectedly early, and she looked forward to a quiet evening with Valeria, maybe even reading to her before bed. Opening the apartment door with her key, she heard the muffled sound of the TV from the living room, but the hallway was unusually quiet. Normally, Valeria would meet her at the door, happily chattering about her day. Maria walked into the living room. Ignacio was sprawled in an armchair, engrossed in a soccer game. Alicia sat next to him on the couch, flipping through a glossy magazine. Neither of them even glanced at Maria. "Hello," Maria said softly, trying not to disturb the atmosphere. Ignacio mumbled something vague in response, his eyes glued to the screen. Alicia merely nodded, still absorbed in her magazine. Maria's heart tightened with unease. "Where's Valeria?" she thought. She checked the girl's room, but it was empty. Approaching the kitchen, she heard the faint sound of water. Peeking inside, Maria froze, stunned. Valeria was on her knees, scrubbing the floor with a rag. Her small hands were red from the cold water, and beads of sweat dotted her forehead. Her face was sad and tired. "Valeria, what are you doing?" Maria asked quietly, trying to hide her distress. Valeria flinched and looked up at her mother with tearful eyes. "I'm cleaning the floor," she whispered, lowering her head. "Who told you to do this?" Maria's voice carried a hint of steel. Valeria stayed silent, fidgeting with the edge of the wet rag. Maria knelt beside her and gently took her hand. "Valeria, tell me who made you do this. Don't be afraid. I'll protect you." A glimmer of hope flickered in Valeria's eyes. "Abuela Luisa," she whispered. "She said I need to help around the house and learn some discipline. And then Alicia went to the movies with Abuela and Abuelo." Maria's heart broke. She pictured Alicia, cheerful and dressed up, being taken to the movies while her own daughter was forced to scrub the floor like a servant. Rage surged through her. "The movies?" Maria asked, struggling to stay calm. "Why didn't you go?" "There were only tickets for Alicia," Luisa, Ignacio's mother, answered reluctantly, appearing in the kitchen doorway. "Valeria's better off staying home doing her homework. No need to spoil her." Maria barely restrained herself from lashing out at her mother-in-law. She helped Valeria stand and wiped her tear-streaked face. "Thank you, Valeria. You've been a big help," Maria said, her voice as gentle as she could manage. "Now go rest." Valeria obediently left the kitchen, and Maria turned to Luisa. "How could you do this?" she asked quietly but firmly. "What's the big deal?" Luisa snapped. "I believe children need discipline, or they'll get out of hand." "This isn't discipline. It's humiliation," Maria interrupted. "Valeria is as much your granddaughter as Alicia. Why do you treat her like this?" "Because she's not my real granddaughter," Luisa blurted out without thinking. "Alicia is blood, flesh of our flesh. Valeria's an outsider." Luisa's words hit Maria like a whip. Something inside her broke. All her hopes for peace and harmony in the family shattered in an instant. She realized fighting this bias was pointless. Luisa would never accept Valeria as her own, and Ignacio didn't seem inclined to change anything. Maria left the kitchen, hiding her emotions. She walked into the living room, where Ignacio was still watching soccer, oblivious to the storm brewing in the kitchen. "Ignacio, we need to talk," she said, keeping her voice steady. Ignacio tore his eyes from the screen and looked at her irritably. "What's wrong? Can't you see I'm watching the game?" "This is important," Maria insisted. "It's about Valeria." Ignacio sighed and turned off the TV. "What now?" he asked, annoyed. "You're always looking for problems where there aren't any." Maria told him what she'd seen in the kitchen and what Luisa had said. She tried to stay calm, but her voice trembled with pain and frustration. "You're overreacting again," Ignacio said when she finished. "Mama just wanted Valeria to help around the house. What's wrong with that? What's wrong is that Alicia got to go to the movies while Valeria was forced to scrub the floor on her knees," Maria exclaimed, unable to hold back her emotions. "What's wrong is that your mother considers Valeria an outsider. How can you not see this?" "Mama's just strict," Ignacio defended, "but she loves Valeria in her own way." "No, Ignacio, she doesn't love her," Maria countered. "She despises her, and you let her. You turn a blind eye to how she and Alicia humiliate her. Do you think I don't notice?" Ignacio stayed silent, head bowed. He didn't want to admit Maria was right. It was easier to pretend everything was fine than to acknowledge his fault. "You need to talk to your mother," Maria said. "You need to tell her that Valeria is your daughter and that you won't let her be treated this way." "I'll talk to her," Ignacio promised, not meeting her eyes. "But you're making a mountain out of a molehill. It's not that bad." Maria shook her head. She knew Ignacio wouldn't do anything. He'd always side with his mother and Alicia. Valeria would always be an outsider to them. "You don't understand," she said quietly. "You just don't understand." She stood and left the room. A plan was forming in her mind. She could no longer stay in this house where her daughter felt unloved and unwanted. She had to leave to protect Valeria. That evening, as Valeria slept, Maria sat in the kitchen sipping tea. She felt drained and lost. She loved Ignacio, but she couldn't tolerate the injustice toward Valeria any longer. Valeria quietly entered the room, clutching her teddy bear, dressed in her pajamas. "Mama, I can't sleep," she whispered. Maria hugged her daughter tightly. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" she asked. Valeria hesitated, then said softly, "They said I'm an outsider here." Maria's heart broke again. Tears welled up in her throat. "No, Valeria, you're not an outsider," she said, barely holding back sobs. "You're my little girl, and I love you so much." "But they don't love me," Valeria whispered. "That's not true," Maria replied. "Sometimes people are unfair, but that doesn't mean you're bad. You're the best girl in the world." Valeria clung to her mother. Maria stroked her head, whispering soothing words. In that moment, she made her final decision. She would leave this house, no matter the cost. She would work day and night to give Valeria a happy, peaceful life. She would prove to everyone that Valeria wasn't an outsider, but the most beloved daughter in the world. The next morning, Maria woke with a heavy heart but a determined gaze. She looked at Valeria, sleeping peacefully beside her, and felt a surge of strength. For her, she was ready to do anything. Steeling herself, Maria began quietly packing. She pulled a small suitcase from the closet and started filling it with essentials: clothes for Valeria, a few of her own things, documents. She moved carefully to avoid waking Valeria or alerting Luisa, whose room was nearby. Valeria woke to the soft rustling. Sitting up, rubbing her eyes, she asked, "Mama, what are you doing?" Maria sat beside her and took her hand gently. "Sweetheart, we need to leave." Valeria looked at her mother, confused. "Leave where?" "To a place where we'll be happy, where you'll be loved and valued." Valeria hugged Maria tightly, sensing something momentous was happening, though she didn't fully understand. "What about Papa Ignacio? Is he coming with us?" Maria sighed. That was the hardest question. "Papa will stay here, but that doesn't mean he doesn't love you. Sometimes people don't realize what they're doing." Maria helped Valeria dress, putting her in her favorite floral dress and braiding her hair neatly. Valeria watched silently, sensing it was best not to ask too many questions. After packing, Maria wrote a short note for Ignacio and left it on the kitchen table, where he'd see it when he woke up. The note read, "I'm leaving with Valeria. I can't stay in a family that humiliates my child." She knew those words would convey the depth of her disappointment. They left the house quietly, trying not to draw attention. It was early morning, and the streets were still calm. Maria took Valeria's hand, and they headed to the bus stop. They were going into the unknown, but Maria was certain they'd manage. The most important thing was that they were together. Soon after they left, Ignacio woke up. He went to the kitchen for coffee and saw the note. Reading it, his heart clenched with pain and confusion. "Is it really that serious?" he thought. He rushed to Valeria's room, but it was empty. He realized Maria wasn't bluffing. She had really left, taking Valeria with her. Maria and Valeria arrived in a small town where Maria's old friend Natalia lived. Natalia welcomed them with open arms and offered them a place to stay until they got settled. She knew about Maria's struggles in Ignacio's family and was ready to help however she could. Valeria slowly came back to life. In her new, small, cozy school where everyone knew each other, she blossomed. There were no more sidelong glances, no whispers behind her back, no comparisons to Alicia. Here she was accepted for who she was, a quiet, thoughtful girl who loved to draw. She smiled more, and a playful spark returned to her once sad eyes. She studied with enthusiasm, especially enjoying art and literature classes. Maria watched these changes with bated breath. Every morning, as she got Valeria ready for school, she saw not a broken child, but a young, promising person. This new Valeria gave Maria the strength to keep going. Despite the challenges, Maria found part-time work at a small private clinic. Soon after, they moved into a one-room apartment near her job. It was on the outskirts of town, in a quiet area where birds sang in the evenings. It was their new home, modest, but theirs. Maria worked hard to create a warm, safe environment for Valeria, surrounding her with care and love. She read to her at night, helped with homework, and listened to her stories about school and friends. Days flew by, filled with tasks and responsibilities. Maria worked, Valeria studied, and together they built their new life. Natalia visited often, bringing treats and offering emotional support. She saw how hard it was for Maria, but admired her strength and resolve. 6 months passed. Maria and Valeria settled into their new routine. They grew accustomed to the town, the school, the job. They felt free and happy despite the hardships. One evening, as Maria returned from work, she saw a familiar figure by the apartment entrance. It was Ignacio. He stood, head bowed, staring at the door. Maria froze, unsure what to do. She hadn't expected to see him so soon. Ignacio looked up and saw Maria. His eyes were filled with pain and remorse, tugging at her heart. He approached her and said quietly, "Maria, forgive me. I was blind. I didn't see what was happening. I caused you both so much pain." Maria stayed silent, unsure how to respond. She needed time to process. "I know you can't forgive me," Ignacio continued, "but I'm asking for a chance to make things right." Maria looked at him. His eyes held sincerity. She could see he was truly sorry. But could she forgive him? Could she forget everything that had happened? "Don't ask for my forgiveness," she finally said. "Talk to Valeria. She needs your apology more than I do." Ignacio nodded, understanding she was right. He needed to speak to Valeria, to explain that he recognized his mistakes and ask for her forgiveness. Maria opened the door and entered the apartment. Valeria was at the table, drawing. Seeing Maria, she smiled. "Mama, look what I drew," she exclaimed, showing her a picture of a house surrounded by flowers, with light glowing in the windows and smoke curling from the chimney. "It's beautiful," Maria said. "Valeria, Papa is here. He wants to talk to you." Valeria froze, her smile fading. She looked at Maria with confusion. "Papa?" she asked. "Why is he here?" "He wants to apologize," Maria replied. "He wants to make things right." Valeria lowered her head, silent for a few moments. "I don't want to talk to him," she finally said. "He doesn't love me. He only loves Alicia." "That's not true," Maria said. "He loves you. He just didn't realize what he was doing. He was blind, but now he sees." "And now everything's supposed to be different?" Valeria asked, her voice tinged with sarcasm. "Will he take everyone to the movies now, or just his real daughter?" Maria didn't know how to answer. Valeria's question was fair. Could Ignacio change? Could he treat Valeria the same as Alicia? "I don't know," Maria admitted. "But I think he deserves a chance." Valeria looked at her, tears in her eyes. She hugged her mother and quietly sobbed. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I'm scared he'll hurt me again." "I'll be right here," Maria said. "I won't let anyone hurt you." Maria wiped Valeria's tears and kissed her forehead. "Come on," she said. "Talk to him." Maria and Valeria stepped into the hallway. Ignacio stood, head bowed, waiting. Seeing Valeria, he looked up and took a step toward her. "Valeria," he said softly, "forgive me. I was wrong. I hurt you. I didn't realize how much pain you were in." Valeria stayed silent, looking at her father, unsure what to say. "I know you can't forgive me right away," Ignacio continued, "but I'm asking for a chance to make things right. I want to be a good father. I want you to know I love you." Ignacio knelt before Valeria, tears streaming down his face. Valeria looked at him, her heart torn between hurt and love. She saw his genuine remorse, his pain. Slowly, she reached out and touched his cheek. Ignacio looked up, hope in his eyes. "Okay," Valeria said quietly. "I'll give you a chance, but you need to remember I won't forget." Ignacio hugged Valeria, sobbing harder. Maria stood nearby, watching them, her heart filled with gratitude. She knew Valeria had made the right choice, giving Ignacio a chance to make amends. But could Maria forgive him? Could she forget everything that had happened? She didn't know. She understood it would take time to process. She knew her decision would shape their family's future. But one thing she was certain of: she would always be by Valeria's side, protecting her, loving her. That evening, as Valeria slept, Maria sat by the window, gazing at the stars. She reflected on the past 6 months, on Ignacio, Valeria, and herself. She understood life was unpredictable, full of challenges and trials, but she also knew that love could overcome anything. A mother's love for her child, a father's love for his daughter, the love between a man and a woman. Maria closed her eyes and sighed. She felt exhausted, but hopeful. She believed everything would be okay. She believed they could build a happy family. She believed in love. She knew the path to forgiveness would be long and difficult, but she was ready to walk it, for Valeria, for Ignacio, for herself. She stood, approached Valeria's bed, and kissed her forehead. Then she turned off the light and went to bed, falling asleep with the thought that tomorrow would be a new day. A new day full of hope and possibilities. A new day